Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fiona Ross, and I am a member of the Fold Planning team, and I am very excited to be your host for today's session. This session is called What We Found and will run until 3:15 Eastern Standard Time. At the end of the panel, we do not have a specific Kahoots today, but you will see more information about a Kahoots that we are running for the whole day on nonfiction. We are thrilled to offer closed caption technology for today's session and for all the sessions this weekend at the Fold. Our festival typically takes place on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded Indigenous territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional homeland of the Wendat, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee nations. As a festival, we are continuously dedicated to increasing our awareness, understanding, and conscientious action on this land. If you are joining us today and you are not Indigenous, we would like to encourage you to think about and explore stories written by the first inhabitants of the place where you are living. We invite you to consider this question along with us. How can you embrace the role of listener and learner as you explore matters related to reconciliation and the land you live on? This virtual space is meant to be a safe space for all guests and panelists. We have closed the chat function to avoid disruption, but please feel free to use the question and answer box, which you will see on the top or bottom of your screen to ask questions of today's panelists. If you are joining by phone, we are also checking Twitter throughout the events for questions from audience using the hashtag Fold2020. This session is called What We Found, and it is my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Prasanna Doctor. Prasanna is the author of 4 novels, and she lives in Toronto, and her 4th novel will be released this August 2020. It is titled All Inclusive 7. We are going to ask each author to read a short excerpt from their book in alphabetical order. That's the authors, not the books. And if there are any glitches in the readings or at any point in the event, please wait, hold tight, log back in. We will post updates on our Twitter page as well. Once the session is over, I'm going to come back in with a few final housekeeping items. For now, please enjoy our readings by Dorothy Ellen Palmer, Jessie Thistle, Jenny Heijan Wills, and Lindsay Wong. Welcome to What We Found.
Hi, I'm Dorothy Palmer, and I'll be reading the introduction to my memoir, Falling for Myself. We all have one true gift to offer the world, and now you know mine. I fall down. Repeatedly, spectacularly. Like the Pope, I'm forever kissing the ground. I can trace my history by the scars on my body, by the times and places I've fallen. At birth, I fell from an unwilling womb into the arms of the Children's Aid. Falling far short of my adoptive mother's expectations, I spent my girlhood on my knees, apologizing for bloody leotards. When corrective surgeries failed to correct much of anything, I fell on crutches, in walking casts, and off my freshly cut feet. I fell at double dutch when my orthopedic Oxfords failed to jump, and at university when my unisex work boots stopped working. I married a good man in my 20s. In my 30s, I fell for a boy pretending to be one. In a heart-cracking moment as a new mom, I smacked the sidewalk with my firstborn in his snuggly. To the delight of my grade 10 drama class, I once fell right off the stage. I spent my 40s fighting not to need a crutch and my 50s resisting a walker. A faceplant into a moving streetcar changed my mind. But if you're expecting an inspiring tale about the importance of getting back up, you'll be disappointed. Here's my truth. I'm a faller and will always be one. Falling makes me bloody furious, and it makes me furiously bloody proud. Now that I understand exactly what makes me fall, I know what I can and can't do about it. I'm learning to retrace my scarred history, to channel shame into solidarity, anger into analysis, denial into delight, and loss into love. After half a century of falling down, I'm falling up. I'm falling for myself.
Jesse Thistle here, and I'm going to read from my memoir, From the Ashes. The fines are fine. When I was homeless and in trouble with the law, I collected fines like boys collect hockey cards. The police slapped fines on me, the courts too. Used to slap fines on me for every missed court appearance, and judges slapped fines on me every time I got convicted. Each fine ranged from $50 to $200. Eventually, my collection added up to over $3,000. The fines had long been a black stain that I believed I could never wash off. They were just there, reminding me I was a criminal who owed a pound of flesh to the state. A pound of flesh I didn't have, would never have. I'd often thought about it in the past, about changing my life, but thinking about those fines would make me give up before I even started. When I got sober, I put those fines aside, mainly because I was just struggling to live. But when I graduated rehab and started working, I began saving with Lucy's guidance. And one day, before I started university, I realized I had over $3,000. I finally had enough to pay my fines. I drove to Brampton with Lucy and walked into the courthouse together with her. I licked my thumb, peeled off each $50 bill, and slapped them down one by one until I counted out the full $3,071 in fines. The teller was gobsmacked and grinned back at me. He knew what paying those fines represented, a break with the past.
I'm Jenny Hirton-Wells, and I'll be reading from my memoir, Older Sister, Not Necessarily Related. On me. How did he, our father, tell you about me? You probably thought I was much younger, a result of the affair that led him to abandon you and your mother when you were a teenager. Did he tell you about the first few months of your life when he went between your family's apartment and my mother's bed? That those same hands that gently turned your head so it could be shaved not long after the seaweed soup and rice cakes were eaten, the next day caressed the swollen belly of a woman who knew another daughter would soon arrive because nightly she dreamed persimmons. Did they tell you together, your mother and our father, reuniting after all those years to confess my name and what they let happen to me? I know when you found out, you insisted we should have been raised together, one girl only slightly smaller but notably darker and skinnier than her sister. But did you wonder why I had to be tossed away, first to an orphanage and then to a land so far from anyone's imagination? Did you ask who agreed to my mother's punishment for our father's infidelity? Annie, did they tell you that blocks away from your own nursery was another, made ready for a sister who never arrived, whom they said had died, that my mother threw away the clothes I would never wear?
Hi, my name is Lindsay Wong, and I'm going to read from the Woo Woo. My mother had survived third world poverty in what had once been the rural outskirts of Hong Kong. Her grandfather's prosperous merchant family had sold their schizophrenic daughter, my grandma, to a poor man for just $100 before jumping ship to Vancouver. Not only had my grandmother been cut off from the family fortune, but she had basically been abandoned in a backwater village to run around barefoot and being famously crazy. So my mother and her siblings had grown up with nothing to eat but all the cigarettes they cared to smoke. Gung Gung, my grandfather, doled out economy packs like candy because he got them for free with his gambling, win or lose. I imagined my mother and my aunties and uncles as toddlers, squatting in ankle-deep mud, chubby black flies, chewing the thick grease off their scalps, smoking cigarettes, having a blast. Because as soon as you turned 2 years old, Gung Gung proudly handed you your very own pack to help with the hunger. When they were lucky enough to buy a whole chicken, only the boys could partake in the skimpy meal. And I imagined my mother as a kid, sulkily huffing and puffing on her cigarettes all day long as she watched her brothers gorge on fresh meat. Each of the 8 kids had a favorite sibling or someone they felt a little sorry for. My mother looked out for her aunt, who was 6 years younger. She was responsible for plucking lice out of beautiful one's thick, horsey hair. And when beautiful one was too vain to want ugly boy's haircut, my mother would slap her into agreement. A sympathetic auntie once told me, "Lucky you, you got the meanest person in the family for your mommy," which was true, because my mother was certainly the most demanding sister. In times of famine and hardship, having my mother around meant that you had a better chance of survival. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you, Dorothy, Jessie, Jenny, and Lindsay, for those readings. I'm very pleased to be moderating this panel and asking you all of the questions that I need to ask you after reading your books. I'm going to spend just a few minutes with each of you first, asking you specific questions about your work. And then after that, we'll try to have a little bit more of a chaotic conversation amongst all of you. So maybe I'll go in the same order as you read. So I'll start with you, Dorothy. In Falling for Myself, you tell your life story that includes the process of working through the shame of adoption and disability. You came out of 2 closets, the disability closet and the adoption closet. What helped you to do this so that you could write this memoir? What did you have to do in preparation?
Well, hello, everybody. And the first thing I need to say is that this fulfills my deep primal need to be on Hollywood squares. So thank you. I also want to thank the Fold because I think this panel represents the diversity of diversity in many different ways. So I think that's fabulous. A lot of things helped me and a lot of things held me back is the best answer, Farzana. I was born in 1954. I was conceived in Hurricane Hazel. I wasn't conceived consensually. There'll be a number of sort of content warnings in my summary, so if you need to mute, mute now. My young working class birth mother gave me up to the Toronto Children's Aid. I remained a ward of the state until I was almost 3. I had 7 different foster homes and 2 long stints incarcerated in a convalescent hospital. Somewhere during there, I was the victim of infant sexual abuse. I got adopted when I was almost 3. I felt very conflicted about being in someone else's home. I never felt like I belonged. I felt like my society and my family were othering me, treating me like a burden that was getting charity, but didn't necessarily deserve it. And that's how the adoption closet and the disability closet reinforce each other under capitalism. In the hierarchy of bodies under capitalism, I was seen as less worthy, and I carried that shame through most of my life. I started to shed it in university when I studied social history, women's history, and began calling myself a feminist. I started shedding that shame even more when I moved to Vancouver and joined a left-wing organization. I began, finally, when I became a teacher and a trade unionist, I took on a leadership role for the first time in my life. I was elected multiple times to the executive of my union, was both branch president and picket captain during the Harris years. And I'm really happy to have been a small part of the largest demonstration in Canadian history when teachers stormed the legislature. And I've been on strike for maybe 4 months of my life. So I understand a little bit about what that's like too. Eventually, I discovered the online disability movement through Stella Young. I found my birth parents. I accepted stories that were difficult and contradictory as being mine. I finally had my own stories. And in my 50s, I needed a crutch. In my 60s, I needed a walker. And once I became visibly disabled, it was much easier for me to own that identity. And I began working as an activist in CanLit and began to realize that what I thought was really ordinary and normal, asking for accessibility, was really difficult when it was both ageism and ableism were so deeply entrenched. It was really hard for CanLit, who keeps running, attending, and holding inaccessible events as if that isn't an issue. Of course, when my memoir came out 4 months ago, I could not have dreamed that I would be in day 56 of my isolation in a pandemic. But I'm really glad to be out of those closets at a time when disabled people and seniors are under attack from ageism and ableism and the virus itself and the rise of eugenics. So eventually, with the help of both of my communities, I came out of both those closets.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so Jessie, in From the Ashes, you write about surviving abandonment, abuse, homelessness, addiction, incarceration, and reconnecting with your Métis identity. In the memoir's endnote, you share, I see what happened to me like fragments of light, flickers of a flame, shadows on a wall. And trauma distorts perspectives. I think my mind blocks a lot out, bends time, folds that trauma in on itself so that I can function today. Can you talk a little bit about how you worked with these fragments as you reconstructed your story to be able to write this memoir? Who and what helped you to do that?
My mind, I have complex PTSD from a lot of the stuff that I went through and I guess put myself through sometimes. And so I'm frozen in moments of my life permanently. I'm like a time traveler. I literally will travel decades into the past and it's crystalline. I can see everything. And I can't stay there for too long or those sharp edges of the crystals and the glass cut me. So I duck out. So when I was doing my AA 4 steps, because I'm a recovering addict, I had to make sense of a lot of my trauma because that was driving my addiction. And so I wrote down those things in little like paragraph or 2-page summaries just to figure out what happened. Because like when you're an addict and you're trying to recover, a lot of it is incomprehensible and doesn't make sense of why people treated you the way that they did and also why you reacted or were such a horrible person yourself. And so when I went back and started really mining these memories that I had, I was re-traumatizing myself and I started working with a trauma therapist, working with her like during the production of some of the hardest things. And she actually uncovered memories that I didn't know I had and helped me work through them. And I remember them now and I've let them go, right? I still see my world in this kaleidoscopic fragments of trauma, but I can engage with those memories longer and they've lost power over me, a lot of them. And I've forgiven myself and the people that were involved. So that's the process, and that's a little bit of how I see the world and how I remember the world as well. So thank you.
Did just a follow-up question to that, did you need to rely on any other people to help you reconstruct pieces?
Yes. Yeah. So most of my life is in the public record because I got arrested a lot. So I went to court a lot and I was doing my pardon while I was doing my book, and I had to apply to the RCMP for my full arrest record and police contact record. So a lot of the middle part of the book is just me going back and looking at the records that were there. I went back and talked to my old probation officer as well. She had a lot of, just different people like that all through my life. I talked to my brothers and I looked at old CAS records and just really reconstruct it. And my grandmother, God bless her heart, she saved all my old report cards from when I was a kid. So I could go back and I could look at like the comments about how when I was fighting and stuff in school. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Me and my buddy Leroy, we did get in quite a lot of fights. And so it was just a wealth of knowledge and memories within these documents that were there all along. So I'm happy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Jenny, so in Older Sister, Not Necessarily Related, you've written a series of letters and vignettes about your experience of being a transnational adoptee and of traveling to Seoul to reunite with your first family. And in a TVO interview, you talked about the extraordinary pace of finding your first mother and not being emotionally ready at the time. And this extraordinary pace has to do with most searches take years and yours took a week. So you had to make yourself ready so you wouldn't risk losing her again. How do you feel this emotional pace impacted the unique structure and unfolding of your memoir?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that question. And thank you for moderating to my co-panelists. This is such a treat for me. You're right. I was unprepared for how quickly the reunion was happening between my first family and me. And I think part of that unpreparedness and part of that expression of fear is then reflected in the fragmented and very circular format of the text. I think, as Jessie mentions, there are ways that these moments of high emotion and high stress and high stakes, I think, come back to us in memories that can feel quite shattered, but also clear at the same time. And I deliberately was working through some of those manifestations of memory in the creating of the structure for this book. So, so you're pointing to the letters, so one-sided conversations that happen in the text. These are attempts to throw down an anchor and try to locate myself in what has happened. Because in other moments of the text, I think I'm quite circular because I'm always trying to come back and figure out what actually did happen and in what order. I think I'm repetitive because I'm always trying to make sense of what happened in such a quick, almost hasty reunion. And I'm also trying to hold things back that I don't want to share with everything. And I'm certain all of my fellow memoirists on this panel have thought about what is going to be given and also what needs to be held on to. Because writing about oneself doesn't mean you get all of that person, I guess. So I think that the structure reflects that a little bit too. Now, it's much more linear than it originally was. So you have my brilliant editor to thank for that, because somehow it always makes sense in my mind, regardless of order, but I definitely know that's not always the case for a reader who hasn't been through your life. So.
And you're also an academic in this area, so I'm curious, that's got to be very linear kind of writing. How do the two kinds of writing impact each other?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're right. I do academic writing about transracial and transnational adoption and also race studies more generally. And one thing that has been revealed to me in the process of doing more creative styles of writing on the same topic is the way that we don't need to necessarily say everything outright, immediately, clearly, directly, and with all the points laid out, that in fact there are ways to nuance or to subtly suggest things and suggest your knowledge, and to allow and to trust in your reader to be able to unpack those things. That's not to say that we don't trust scholarly readers, but sometimes it feels like you need to prove that you've done all the research. And
Right.
so that writing mode feels a little bit different, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And Lindsay, in the Woo Woo, you focus on mental health issues in your family. And in a CBC trailer for Canada Reads, you share that you don't choose memoir, it chooses you. Can you talk about how you realized that memoir had chosen you? And did you find yourself readily accepting or resisting this call at first?
That's a good question. That's something I'm still trying to figure out myself. So with this memoir, I don't think I actually wanted to write a memoir until it kind of just, like I said, it just found me. And I was in grad school at that time, and I was in a program, a nonfiction writing program, and it just seemed that, everyone had to write a memoir. And I was writing it, and then I was kind of feeling like, no one's going to read it. I can just say whatever I want. Maybe 5 people will read it, and, that's it. But over the years, I've kind of found that, it's just sort of this process where I'm like, do I want to keep going? Do I want to do this? But I keep finding myself, being drawn to it. And I don't know, it's frightening. I think, Jenny, you mentioned that, a memoir is kind of like a curated experience. But for me, I think I put too much of myself in the woo-woo. And so I don't know if I'll get more or less honest as I keep writing nonfiction.
A couple of weeks ago, as we were starting to promote this event, you kind of made a joke, and you were asking the rest of the panelists, like, are you all done with memoir? And so I wanted to ask you, are you done? Because I think I saw something a couple of days ago that maybe you're not done.
I thought I was, I thought I was. An outlet reached out to me, and they're like, can you write us something? You can write a poem or a short story or a personal essay. And, poems are for really smart people. I don't know how to write poetry. Short stories, I don't know, I can't dream of anything, especially now with what's going on. And I ended up just writing a personal essay. It just like pulls you back in. There's something about it. I guess it's addictive, this form. It's, in many ways, it's either like confessional or it kind of helps you work through things, at least for me.
Thank you. So maybe I'll start with that to get all of you bouncing off of each other. So are you done with memoir now? Is there anything that you've learned through the process? Is there anything you would have changed about your memoirs now with all of this experience? How do you feel about having written a memoir? Who feels like going? Should I just pick one of you? Because this might be the easiest. Okay. Dorothy.
Okay. I think I resisted it more when I was writing it. There's some very difficult secrets that I debated, just as Jenny says. Some I kept, some I told. And the ones I told, I think once I realized I had told them, once I set myself free of them, I really was free of them. They couldn't hurt me anymore. And there are still a couple of secrets that maybe need that process too. So it might be a good idea to think about a little more memoir writing, or certainly a little bit more perspective of a disabled senior in the pandemic, because we aren't seeing enough of that perspective. And I think it's really important that we do so.
Okay, thank you. Jesse, do you want to jump into that question?
Yeah, I was chosen, I guess, to write a memoir like Lindsay. I didn't want to really. I'm an academic, and I'm trying to get my dissertation. I was asked to write my book, and so I just, a lot of it was actually just my AA 4 steps, me trying to figure out my addiction. And so like Lindsay, I think I put a lot into it that I didn't think anybody else was going to read, because it was just for myself initially. And I just let it all out. And like Dorothy's saying, it freed me when I told those secrets that once held power over me. And, I wouldn't say I'm like an eagle now, I'm more like a chicken trying to get off the ground. But it helped me a little bit. It gave me a little wind underneath me, you know, and there's a lot, like Jenny mentioned, of holding stuff back. There are stuff that I held back. My book is only 365 pages and I'm a 44-year-old man. So there was a lot that I kept to myself that I'll take to the bottom of the ocean with me, I think. So, yeah.
And maybe for all of you to think about, I'm curious, what was the process of decision making for figuring out what to hold back? And maybe you can wave to me as if that's a question you want to answer. And I'll maybe just move on to Jenny right now.
Sure. First of all, 340 pages for a memoir is super long in my book, or in my books. But I take your point for sure about what we choose to include and what we choose not to include. And sometimes how those decisions are made for us so that narrative can be read more clearly, I guess, also. You know, I'm interested in writing short pieces of nonfiction, and I've been asked to write a few short pieces of nonfiction, one of which I feel is a bit of an epilogue to my memoir. So I'm interested in that kind of writing. I'm also fortunate enough that my university considers creative output as research. And so I think that there are opportunities in more traditionally academic venues to do something like creative nonfiction or life writing leaning works. But I guess I have 2 points. One is that this particular memoir, I originally imagined it as a novel. First poems actually, and then as a novel. And then I started to agree to loosen a bit of control or fear around it. I was like, okay, maybe creative nonfiction, maybe that feels okay. And it eventually ended up as memoirs. So it took that journey of me wanting to hide behind fiction, I think, a little bit, or distance myself from some of the ideas and some of the things I was describing, towards that very direct and intensely personal genre of memoir. But I will say that also, I feel, especially for writers from marginalized communities, specifically for BIPOC writers, regardless of what one writes, people will always ask you if it's based on your life, because there's a presumption that writers of color cannot be imaginative or creative or innovative in these ways. And so I'm also trying to resist some of those expectations that we only do autoethnography and we only do nonfiction. So,
Thank you. Lindsay, is there anything you'd like to add on this subject?
It was a terrifying experience. That's all I can say. I mean, writing it, because I felt no one would read it, I just thought, you know, I could just put whatever I wanted on the page. But when it came time to sort of go out and promote it and talk to people about it, it was suddenly a very, very different experience, I think, for me.
And if you are comfortable answering this, what were some of the things you were terrified of?
I think just having to sort of come to terms with that, I put a bunch of family secrets on the page and now they were public. I mean, I hadn't even told my friends about the woo-woo. I hadn't, you know, really told anyone about, you know, what was going on in my life. And so in many ways, it was like, here it is, here's, you know, my life in 330 pages, and now it's public. And I think that was, in many ways, that really shocked me.
Mm-hmm. And that's also a theme I think that comes up a lot for memoir writers, is that, you know, all of a sudden, so many of your personal things become very, very public, and then you have to find a way to kind of cope with that in the world. Can you talk a little bit about how you cope with some of those big secrets being out in the world and visible in a different way?
My friend Euphemia Fantetti said something that I thought was wonderful about the process of her own memoir, that it was a double vulnerability when it went out into the world, because you feel vulnerable about any book that you write because you've given birth to this book. But when you've given birth to a memoir, the book is also yourself. So you're giving birth to yourself as well as giving birth to a book. So it's a double vulnerability out there. And I think I sort of had to come to the conclusion that once it's out there, it's everyone else's book. And they're going to see things in it that I might not see, and, you know, like things, different things depending on who they are and where they come from. And I find that the only concern I've had about it being out in the world is taking charge of it not being marketed as inspiration porn. And what I mean by that is not being marketed as an inspiring story where I personally and individually am a hero and overcame everything. No, I have not overcome ageism or ableism. I will struggle with them all my life. And I don't want the book marketed in any way to suggest that it's done and over. So I find that as long as the people that I'm working with are on the same page, my editor was great. She was absolutely on the same page about that, that I fight that inspiration porn, and then I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. Jesse, any thoughts about that, about this visibility?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I got a attention span like a fruit fly here.
So the question was about, you know, the sudden visibility of the big secrets and what do you do to cope with that? And if anyone wants to also bounce off of something that Dorothy said about how important it is to work with editors who are on the same page with you about your message, add that in if you want.
I was sat down by my auntie, a powerful Indigenous woman, before my memoir dropped, and she said, "Jesse, never listen to the clapping hands of the audience." And I didn't understand what that meant. She's like, "You got to do this for yourself. You got to talk about these things and not, you know, look for validation, because if you look for validation, that's driven by ego. And it's also driven, when you open your ego up like that, then you can get really hurt, right? Because there's going to be a lot of like negative comments too that come with it. And there's going to be people that try to hurt you, what you say. So that was kind of like a force field she gave me with before I even started the process. And then when it came out, I got really, really stressed and anxious. And I have a really good support system around me. Like my wife, she started taking me to Scandinav, this Nordic spa, and I make sure to have like spa days, you know, and take care of myself. And I play with my cat and I go in the backyard. And so the outside world and what other people think about my work really doesn't care. I don't care. Much like, you know, an artist who paints a picture, once it leaves my studio, it's not my business anymore. It's what, you know, it's now a piece of art for others to look at and make sense of. So
Thanks. Jenny?
Thanks.
I'm just going through this one order because I think it's the best way to manage this kind of format. So yeah. Hopefully that's okay. Go ahead.
I think so. I'm actually quite intimidated about people knowing a lot about me. I'm outwardly quite ostentatious, I think, in a lot of ways, but I know that it's definitely misdirection or a tactic to control how people are looking at me and to curate. This is a term that I heard already on this panel, to curate how and why people are looking at me. And so I'm actually quite a private person. And so I'm intimidated, I think, about people knowing things about me. I'm differently intimidated by people I already know learning new things about me than I am of strangers whom I've never met knowing something about me before we encounter one another. Those are different situations to navigate, I think. I also think this was in my mind a little bit as it became clearer to me that there would be a larger reading audience for this book. Like Lindsay, like maybe other folks, I didn't think that anyone would read this book, and it was a bit of a side project. I should have been working on an academic book, and then I wrote this instead. And so I didn't think that anyone would read it, and it started to gain more and more momentum towards a larger reading audience. So with that in mind, I also started to lean into some of the literary knowledge that I had and use certain devices to hide in plain sight a little bit, and to use lyrical prose, to use that second person address, to use nonlinear structure, and other kinds of poetic elements, I think, to be a little bit evasive in moments. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay, you want to jump into this question?
I think for me, I just sort of had to really kind of separate myself from the book, especially when it came out, and just to, sometimes take social media breaks and really rely on my support system, as Jessie said, because I think, we were both on Canada Reads, and, suddenly you have a lot of people just commenting, and sometimes the comments are directed at you, right? And people will tell you exactly how they feel, or why you should not have written this book. And, they'll send you a really long, DM or an email. And for me, it was sort of just, making sure that I was able to be like, I'm not reading this today. I'm going to do something else. And I think that's sort of the danger of memoir. And you're willing to be vulnerable on the page, and then in letting people kind of take that vulnerability and interpret it their way. And I think that's the most frightening part for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that because we are in this age of social media, that probably today compared to, say, 10 years ago, you'd be getting a lot more trolls. Is that something you're experiencing as trolls?
Oh yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of you?
Yeah, they come up from the Twitter bridge and they throw a mushroom on you, it's pretty bad.
The disabled community gets endless numbers of trolls all the time, telling us everything from, you deserve to die, you're fat, you're stupid, we don't really care if disabled people die in the pandemic. We don't really care if old people die. They're just, long-term care residences are God's waiting room, I think one of the politicians said, and I've had people quote that to me. Trolls seem to think that, they can vent whatever they want in our direction, and it gets to the point where you just have to laugh at it and turn it off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And go to Le Scandinave as well.
Yeah. Can I comment on that a little bit? Because the obverse of trolls are, I don't know if they're called positive trolls, but they're people that have had similar experiences to you, or they have someone who has gone through what you've gone through in their life, and so they'll send you these DM messages, and they're trying to relate to you and give you props and make you feel good, but those two can be something that burns you out. It's still a positive stress. And I'm not complaining. I love getting messages like that, and I'm sure we all get them. But there's a psychic toll that comes from having to read all these other stories from other people. And yeah, sorry, I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to go off what you were saying there, Dorothy.
It makes sense what you're talking about, because there's a lot of energy in reading other people's stories. And I'm imagining that some of those people who are contacting you are not just contacting you to say, I related, thank you so much, wonderful memoir, but also asking for support in some direct or indirect ways. Does that happen?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Anyone want
People who are older like me, who went all their lives where it was illegal to find out about our birth parents, and that legislation didn't change till I was in my 50s, and that made it possible. And I get any number of messages from people asking me to help them find their birth parents, and I direct them to all of the organizations that will help them. I also get a lot of people who are in the closet about their disability and, want some support, and I be as supportive as I can, but again, direct them to organizations and places of belonging that will help them do that better than I can.
Jenny, you were nodding. Do you get those kinds of requests too?
Yes. I get a lot of really beautiful messages and letters, like handwritten letters mailed to my office, I guess, because that's public information. Maybe I shouldn't have reiterated that now.
Don't send any more letters to Jenny.
I mean, we're off campus, so I won't read them for a long time. But I think for me, I'm a very, well, I don't know if it sounds like a flex, but I'm an empathetic person and reader. So it does stay with me a long time, and it gets into my body when I read about the struggles of other people also. And so I think what Jesse is saying is true, is that it's a beautiful thing to make those connections and for someone to feel that they can speak to you about those things. But it's also because we care, I think. It's something that we hold in to us also. In terms of social media, I get the feeling that there may be a misunderstanding that a memoirist is someone who loves themselves and is so driven by ego and all of these things that it's like open season, or that someone's searching after some sort of celebrity about themselves, that they think they're so exceptional and so awesome that they'll write a book about themselves, right? Whereas I think there are ways that people come to memoir, and I've heard this from all of the panelists today, where it's not really something that's like, this will make me famous, this will make me adored. It's more like, this genre is the one that feels appropriate at the time to communicate some of these things that I'm thinking about that happen to me. And so perhaps this is why there is sometimes a sense of aggression towards memoirists, or like a sort of openness or a forthrightness that maybe one wouldn't necessarily have if they were just talking to someone on the street about their experiences. I don't know.
Okay. I have another question that is a little heavier that maybe I'll see if you're up for. I'm on Twitter a lot, obviously, because this is helping my questions along. So I think yesterday, the day before, Jenny, you tweeted that a common thread across all your books is difficult, complicated, displaced kinship. And Dorothy, you added on also erased kinship and forbidden kinship. I'm wondering if you could all reflect on what this means to you and how it came up in your books. Complicated, erased, displaced kinship. Maybe I'll start with you, Lindsay, this time. That's okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with my family, we don't talk about anything. We just, sweep everything under the rug and, pretend it didn't happen. And so I think, that was largely why I'd written a family memoir. I've always been someone who's always been really curious about, who I am and, who are the people around me. And I thought, maybe, I'm going to write a book and maybe we'll talk about it one day. So the book came out and everyone just ignored it. My family, I'm sure, they must have seen it on the news or something. It wasn't until my brother, he told me, he said, oh, so mom and dad, they got it from the library, right? Because they don't want to spend any more money on you. They paid for 2 writing programs. And so I was like, oh, okay, let me know when they read it. So they were like number 10 on the holds. They finally got the book and I guess they read it because I went up to my brother again. I said, so what do mom and dad think? Are we going to have this conversation about this book? Are we going to have this conversation about, being a family or whatever? And he said, yeah, I guess so, but no one's talking about it. And so I asked him once, and so are you going to read my book? And he's like, no, because I think you're a shitty writer, Lindsay. And I was like, okay, thanks. My brother and I both went to the same writing program as well. So, we have this rivalry. So it goes on. And so with my family, it's just, we don't say anything about it. I'm sure they talk about me when I when there's like family dinners or whatever, but writing this book is kind of just another, secret, I guess, but maybe a very public secret.
Mm-hmm. Cute. Dorothy.
For me, I think the longing for a family that I felt had been erased and forbidden to me characterized all my growing up years. I had very rich fantasies about who my parents really must have been, including JFK and, various other people that made perfect sense to me at the time. And that actually made its way into my first novel, When Fenland Falls, where the 14-year-old protagonist writes 100 different of her own creation stories using her non-identifying information, because that's what I was given from the Children's Aid Society, a very loosely constructed storyline that had nothing identifying. And the cheat of it hit me as I got older. And as I joined Parent Finders First and then other adoptee rights organizations and, worked to get the legislation changed and helped different adoptees go through their searches. And then now on DNA, I eventually found my birth mother through the change in legislation. I found my birth father's family through DNA testing. I found a half brother through DNA testing who is 1 week younger than I am. Let that sink in for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And to discover a brother in your 60s is a wonderful thing. It's like finally having that cheat removed and that erasure removed. I'm physically related to somebody, not just my own children. So that finally later in life came full circle.
Wonderful. Thanks. Jenny.
Yeah, that Dorothy's thoughts and words on the importance of biological kinship really resonates with me. In a lot of my scholarly writing, I write about genetic testing actually for adopted people. And the complexities of those programs and the need for them and the easy way that many people can just dismiss the importance of biology. And we do this, in race studies and gender studies, all these things. We talk about social constructivism and moving away from biologic thinking. But there always is that pull, I think. But it is because kinship is socially constructed in a way that suggests that it's important, right? But your summary of those things really resonates with me. I would actually go to a lot of conferences, and when there would be like Korean American, usually men who would be around the age that I thought would be my father's age, I would just think that I would think that everyone was my parents. This also complicated things in terms of dating because I didn't know who could or couldn't, who was or who wasn't potentially related to me when I was younger. And I, at one point, thought a very famous Asian American novelist was my father. He was not, but I never mentioned it. I think about complicated kinships often and how many of us have multiple complicated kinships in our lives. But lately I've been thinking a lot about the unfair expectations that I've had on the idea of kinship that comes from a place of understanding kinship as a very constructed and powerful social expression. And so I want to celebrate the importance of those feelings, but also recognize, this model of kinship is one that mimics nationalism, right? It's about
Mhm.
belonging and not belonging,
Yeah.
and who are your people and who are not your people, and what we do in the name of our loyalty to our people, right?
Mhm.
So I'm thinking carefully, I think, about our expectations on kinship, but also how much power we give to the idea of kin.
Mhm.
Okay. Jesse, would you like to jump into this complicated kinship?
Yeah, so Métis people, my people, have literally been systematically erased from the narrative of Canada. So our accomplishments, our kinship structures, we're disconnected from our culture, all these things within the state. So I'm a fourth world alien in my own land. You know, basically that's the language that they use. And they did this thing through adoption. They did it through public education. They did it in all these various ways. So, you know, oddly enough for me, it was ancestry.com that kind of helped me uncover some of those like broken strands, right? That helped me reconnect with my kin. And then I used like university to look at secondary and primary documents to contextualize what I had found in my ancestry tree, and then I reconnected with my community. And so it's a very, very real way that our kin structures have been destroyed. And I've heard it described by my elder, who she said it's like our puzzle pieces were thrown in the air intentionally, and it's up to us now to collect and put that puzzle back together. But what makes us so strong is that we are working to put those puzzle pieces together where other people aren't even aware that their puzzles have been thrown in the air. And so
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful metaphor to articulate, you know, what processes like adoption and being erased from history and all these things have to do within the Canadian state. So I'm kind of rambling on. I know what I'm trying to say here, but
Wonderful, thank you.
yeah.
I'm going to ask one last quick question to all of you, and then we're going to go to audience questions. We have 379 participants today, and I see about 14 questions. So we'll try to get to a few of those questions. But my last question is just about what your next projects are. Dorothy?
I'm writing two things right now. I'm writing an ongoing column for Broadview about the experience of being a senior disabled woman during the pandemic. And I'm writing a somewhat later book called A Curious Case of COVID Confinement, How I Survived the Pandemic with Sherlock Holmes. And this is kind of a book of my heart. I've been a Sherlock Holmes fan all my life. And he's here with me alone in my apartment every day, and that helps.
Okay, thank you. Jesse, what are you working on next?
I'm working on the story of my great uncle Ronnie. He was a bank robber in the 70s and 80s, and so his story is going to be a lot more fictionalized. I've had enough of this nonfiction world, so I can get away with more, and I can make the story a lot more interesting than my own. And then I'm also doing a podcast with Ian Campo, formerly of a tribe called Red, where we talk to Indigenous lead Indigenous thinkers, and we're hoping to make it into a podcast that's going to go, you know, it's in the works. It's in the works. So I got a lot going on, and my dissertation, of course, right? Got to get that done. So.
And what's the podcast called?
It's called Chatting with Homies. It's something that's very easy to remember and colloquial, you know, and we could have made it sound very academic-y, but I don't think people would want to listen to it then. So.
Lenny, what are you working on next?
Thanks. I'm working on a historical novel right now. I don't want to say too much, but it's loosely based on the lives of Jim Jones's 3 Korean adopted children. He and his partner notoriously adopted several children of many races, and many people believe he's the person who coined the term rainbow family that we see attributed in positive ways I think, to like the Jolie Pitts and to other folks. So I'm writing about that time period in different parts of the Americas.
And Lindsay, what are you working on now? Oh, you've got a book coming out like
Yeah.
a month, right?
In June, yeah, a YA novel, My Summer of Love and Misfortune, comes out June 2nd. I have a bunch of YA and fiction actually on my laptop that I'm kind of just, working through and hoping, I can kind of salvage into a manuscript or so. Yeah, and maybe a bunch of personal essays, but I don't want to do that. But I'll probably do it, but I don't want to.
Okay. Thank you all so much. I'm going to move and just look at the Q&A here. And okay, let's start with the first one. Marie Marion says, how did you come up with your openings? So who wants
I
to?
can do that. I had 157 different openings to my book. Didn't like any of them. And in the back of my mind were always these stud guppies that my dad raised. He raised and sent out stud guppies to impregnate other fish lovers' guppies. And I kept thinking, where do these guppies go? We've got to go somewhere in the book. Where do they go? And eventually I realized the guppies go in the first line. And I thought to myself, what kind of person writes a book about stud guppies in the first line? And eventually I decided I'm the kind of person that writes a book with stud guppies in the first line. So it took a long time, but eventually the stud guppies got where they belonged.
Thank you. How many you said? 100 and what?
At least 157. I lost count. I really struggle with introductions and beginnings.
Jesse, how did you come up with your opening?
The opening of my book is a poem. It's about when I'm stealing from the Centennial Flame Fountain on Parliament Hill when I was like a homeless addict. And so the editor, my editor, and the senior editor thought that was like a microcosm of the way that Canada makes Indigenous peoples, basically paupers in their own lands. And so it was like a political critique of the whole system of the way that Indigenous people are treated. So, and my life is just basically a small fraction of that kind of dialogue. So that's why it appeared the way it did.
Well, thanks. Jenny?
Thanks. My book starts with a preface, and it's a bit of a disclaimer because I wanted to reiterate that even when working within the genre of memoir, where there's an expectation of a singular truth being communicated between the speaker and the reader, that for adopted people and for other people also, this idea of a singular truth of one's story or origins is an impossible thing to have, let alone tell. And so I wanted to start with a reminder that we need to challenge our expectations of genre because not everyone fits within them.
Thank you. And Lindsay, how did you?
I struggled a lot with my opening. For me, I would try various different chapters started with the opening until finally I sat down, I think, with an editor, my agent, and we decided that we should write a prologue. A prologue would kind of just connect to the ending. So sometimes I think working backwards can be really, really helpful for those of you writing memoir.
And you also have an epilogue as well.
I do, yeah. I think because my life is still going on. I think I have too much to write about. So yeah, it just keeps going.
Okay, thanks. I'll move on to Monica Meneghetti's question. I hear a theme of freedom here, e.g. freeing yourself from shame, freeing yourself from being controlled by trauma. I'd love to hear the panelists' thoughts on the role of true story in emancipating us, not just the reader, but the writer too, and society as well. That's a big question. Should we go in the same order again? Dorothy or anyone else, if you've got something immediately to say, just jump in.
Can I pass on that? I need to think about it.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I'll take a stab at it. free, true story of a homeless person, right? You'd be surprised. Some people, after reading my book, they're like, I feel empathetic towards homeless people now, and I realize that they have stories. I'm like, it took you reading my book that to understand that that person had a story and that it wasn't a choice. Like, I'm grateful that my book was a conduit to help you to that, but I don't know if that, yeah, true story has the power to not emancipate, maybe reveal, I think, and show a different world, and that creates some sort of reaction. But yeah, I get those quite often. So.
And also with these questions, like if you want to pass, feel free. If you want to answer, feel free. So, Jenny, are you wanting to jump in?
You know, one of the things as someone who studies adoption narratives that I was thinking about often while writing was the very, I think, binary ways that adoption is discussed in literature, film, television, etc. And that is either something that's like pitied or connected to shame, or something that is a sort of outright celebration of hope, right? And I think for me, writing this book was a way to refuse, I guess, for me is a better word than freeing, because one can never, but to refuse the very limiting way that experiences like mine and Dorothy's and other folks have been discussed in mainstream narratives, and to say that most of it exists in that sort of grayish area in between.
Thank you. Lindsay, are you wanting to jump in on this one?
I think it's obviously for some people, memoir is a really cathartic experience, and hopefully, you have readers who actually see themselves in the text. Like when I have, high school students or really young undergrads email me and tell me that, this is like a book that really spoke to them, or, they felt less alone. I think that's an amazing experience. But at the same time, you have some readers who will come up to you and be like, why would you tell this story? And, my book is about mental illness in Chinese families and how we don't like to talk about it, or we ignore it, or we think it's based on superstition. And sometimes, you have to kind of like swallow that urge and be like, did you read my book? And it can be frustrating to kind of have that, that sense that, you are kind of you're communicating, but sometimes readers aren't picking up on that because the book, it doesn't belong to you anymore.
Okay, thank you. Dorothy, are you wanting to speak to this one?
I just want to pick up on what Jenny said about the way the adoption story is forced into two polar opposites, that either you're pitiable and everything was horrible and tragic, or everything was wonderful and rosy and you discovered the nuclear family and you were welcomed and loved and everything was perfect. And most stories are in between. And that being forced into polar opposites is very similar, I think, to acceptable disability narratives. You're either sad and pitiable and broken and can't do anything and stay home and cry and then die, or you overcome, you beat the system, you have survived and you're joyous and you're wonderful and you don't need any help from ableist society is the subtext of that, right? And ableist society does not need to change because you have personally overcome. So both of those forced into polar opposites in both the adoption story and the disability story are only freeing to me when I realized that they both serve capitalism. They serve the state. They serve the way that people are made to that's not a word, to rank bodies in hierarchies of valuable to unvaluable. And what was really freeing to me was when I finally, took on the idea from disability justice that no body and nobody shall be left behind, that nobody is disposable. That's what's really freeing.
Thank you. How about we try one more question? Darren Birch says, I appreciate Jenny's comment. Oh, actually, I want to go for the other one because the one above. Jesse Thistle comments on the importance of documentary evidence in the writing of his memoir, and I'm wondering if the other panelists could comment on their process to vividly place their reader in the situation they are creating for the reader. So if you could speak a little bit more about your documents. And I'm also aware, one of the things that came to mind when I was reading Lindsay's and Jesse's books is that you also talk about things that were in the news as well. So if you can just, whoever wants to go first, go for it. Who wants to go? Lindsay, do you want to speak to that?
I think the news for me played a really important role because at that time I read about a bridge jumping incident that occurred in 2008, and I was in Paris at that time, and I wasn't there for the event. And so for me to be able to kind of, you know, go online and to look at what was happening and kind of compare all the sources, because in my book, the news had actually gotten reporting wrong, and then talking to my parents and my family about it. So I think sometimes that's the best way to sort of find what had happened to something. And so I think, you know, it's, for me, I think that was the only time I used the news for that sort of event, but everything else was sort of kind of shrouded in secrecy. And I would have to really just talk to family and be like, so what did you think of this event? And then everyone would give me different, you know, versions. And so I would kind of have to like cobble them together and be like, so I think this is the right version. And of course, you know, as a memoir, you know, you readers do know that, you know, this is a version of a truth, right?
Thank you. Anyone else want to jump into that? Jenny?
I don't really use too many documents in my memoir. There are very few intertexts. I have two examples of actual letters that I received. One is the summary of me from my adoption file, and then one is a letter from my Korean mom. So instead, I use a lot of, I think, imagery to draw a reader into particular moments. I use that second person address to create a kind of intimacy, I think, where I can talk about political things and things that make me feel a way, but to hide it in a conversation with a sister, for instance. So that's one of the techniques that I use to draw a reader into the story without being pedantic, I think, and without being moralizing in certain ways. So that was one of the things that I tried to do.
We got a notification that we just have a couple minutes left, so maybe we could have 1 minute answers if Jesse.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
don't worry. We're right at the end here.
Yeah, I used news reports. I was involved with a murder case that I was pulled into, and so it's, you know, something that happened in Brampton in 2000, and I had to step forward and be a good person and betray my street code, and so that record's out there. So are the court cases, and then beyond that, I used a letter from my dad that he sent me from when he was in jail when I was just a little boy, and I put it at the end because I could try to write about it, but I don't think it's as effective as I just put the actual documents in the text and let people read it for themselves. And so there was that, and yeah, there was a lot of different places where I used records, and I think it helps strengthen my story, and yeah, so.
Thank you. Dorothy, do you want to lead us out of this section?
Sure. I used, like Jenny did, my documents from Children's Aid, my non-identifying information. I put that in straight. I also used a whole number of newspaper articles, which very slowly and reluctantly convinced me about the rise of eugenics, because I didn't want to believe it and felt I had to document it to make it clear.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I see that Fiona's back.
Hello, and thank you all. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for such an insightful and thoughtful discussion. Forenza, your questions were wonderful. And just the way you all listened to each other and added. And I feel like even though I've been here in real time for the whole thing, I want to revisit and rethink, because there were so many fractions of conversations and insightful comments that I really would like to go back and think on further. So thank you so much for such a thoughtful discussion. We're going to transition to our closing remarks now. And first thing we would like to do is to remind you we are all over on social media. We are, we're very thankful for any tweets that we get to support us. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as well. And if you would like to support us in another way, we would love if you could help us at Canada Helps for the Fold Foundation. We would like to encourage you another couple of things. The Fold program, which we normally hand out in real time with real paper, is now available online for you to see and to read. And there's wonderful contributions from past Fold participants, such as Alicia Elliott, Ivan Coyote, and many more contributors. So it's now online, and we would encourage you to go and look there. We would also like to remind you that Another Story is the Chosen Festival Bookshop, and they're a fantastic bookstore. If you can support them in any way, that would be lovely. If not, a local independent bookstore, even in these times, is usually doing curbside pickup. Please look and ask. They are wonderful sources and wonderful supports for the Canadian literary community. We would also like to remind you that Audible is one of our big sponsors at the Fold, along with many others. But with Audible in particular, you can go there and find much of the material that we promote at the Fold, many of our writers, including our challenge that we have every year for the festival. So please consider listening to a book, perhaps. And the last thing I would like to remind you is we do not have a specific Kahoots for this particular presentation, but we have a Kahoots that is running all day. For nonfiction, it ends at 11 p.m. tonight. You can log on and do it at your leisure. Of course, it's still timed. So there's our PIN number. It's 0304515. And if you would like to participate at any time before 11 p.m. tonight, we will have that Kahoots up and for your entertainment pleasure. So thank you so much to everybody who joined us today. Please be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and continue to sign on to the Fold. We are still running sessions for the rest of today and tomorrow, and we close up Monday with a wonderful 5-year culminating event with JL and Amanda. Please join us for all of those events, and thank you so much for your time.